Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Simply Bitcoin IRL. Today we have a very special guest, Justin Rezvani. He is the CEO and founder of Zion. Very excited to talk to him about that. But before we start the show, I want to give a shout out to the Bitcoin company that makes this show possible, Swan Bitcoin. Best place to buy Bitcoin. It's built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Also, check out the Swan IRA. If you want to find out more about it, go to swan.com/IRA. If you haven't already done so, check out Swan Bitcoin today. And you can go to swan.com/simply. And if you sign up using that link, I think you get $10 for free once you make your first purchase. Anyways, no more delay. Let's bring Justin up on stage. How you doing, Justin? What's up, bro?
What's up, brother? Thank you so much. And thank you, Corey and Swan. Thanks for sponsoring this.
Yeah, man. Love Corey. Corey's great. Swan is great. Yeah, Corey's great vibes.
Good person.
Yeah.
Like he checked in on me a couple like 2 weeks ago. Just called me. How you doing?
He does that.
I fuck with people like that. Like,
yeah.
Really appreciate that. Like,
yeah. Corey's an incredible guy. He's
human shit.
Like, very, very unique. Very unique.
That's the stuff AI will never fucking do.
Absolutely not. I think that they're, making content. I think that there's stuff that you come to realize very quickly. It's like only a human being could do this. Like it's very unique. Yeah. Okay. You're shaking your head. Why is that?
I mean, so this is not my thing. This was Eric Weinstein, which you met at the Bitcoin conference. Eric said this thing on stage that completely changed my mind and thinking around AI. And it was just really, really interesting. And I've watched this video so many times that I've really ingrained this concept in my mind. And it's interesting, this concept about repetitive behavior. And I think this is just an interesting topic generally. So we know generally what's happening in these neural nets. Like if they're basically doing some linear algebra followed by some nonlinear function theory. But what we don't understand is, why do they look like us? Why are they quote unquote intelligent? Because we can't go inside the neural net and say, oh, this is the reason we do this, and this is why that we do this. And I think that we think that when we're being creative and we're thinking all the time, and what we can mostly do is just finish each other's sentences. We can basically finish what we're all thinking. And for the most part, we're doing the same thing that we did the day before in the same conversational patterns. And I think this is important because when someone says something new, and this is basically really big in the Bitcoin community, we call them a grifter. We call them whoring for clicks. We call them someone that's like, oh my God, how dare you do that? Because most of what we do as humans is basically this repetitive activity. And AI is effectively eating our lunch when it comes to repetitive activity, because we correctly found that on a daily basis, we're mostly not intelligent. We're just repetitive. And if you've been trained in school, we've put ourselves basically in the fucking crosshairs of AI. Because what happens when you go to school? You're basically trained to do the same thing. And because computers, like if you think about how a computer works, and I think about this every day, is that there's basically two things that happen inside of a computer. It's a loop that's continuing the same program, and then something that only happens once. And if you stop a computer program with a debugger, you're basically stopping this looping function, because a computer is mostly in loops all the time. It's in this repetitive behavior. So we've reached this like thing in education and in our lives that we think we're excellent and everything what we do. But what we're finding in our life is most of what we do is repetitive. It's not actually intelligent. So one of the things that I think about a lot is, how do you spend your time not being repetitive? How do you spend your time in what is now called intelligence? Because there's crazy ideas out there. Like an example, Zion is a crazy idea. And the word that Eric uses, that Zion is an act of violence. Because every act of creation is effectively a violent act, which is difficult to do. And you think about, what portion of your day have you done something that you've never done before? And if it even feels a little bit minor, That source of genius is what makes us amazing and human. And that's the true concept of intelligence. Because if you're going to keep doing repetitive behavior, AI is just going to eat your lunch. Because what AI has shown us, what ChatGPT has shown us, is that everything we speak, everything we say can be tokenized. And it's just an input output function on a machine. And it's been good enough to this point to fool us to think that we're intelligent. But the big discovery is that mostly we are not.
Interesting. I mean, okay, so very fascinating. Clearly you've explored this topic before. I'm hearing this for the first time, so my
Let's
brain's
go and unpack that. Like, this is a great way to open up, right?
okay, all right. And then I want to tie it back. You mentioned Zion. I want to go back. I want to
is an act of violence.
Okay.
It's an act that I don't believe an AI would have put all these fucking weird pieces together, because nothing about what we do is repetitive, because it's truly never been done before.
Yeah. And okay, so and I agree with you, by the way. I love the way that you broke it down, which is like the vast majority of your day, you're just going through the motions. These are patterns that you've picked up. You know, clearly, if the patterns are not too harming to your health or not too stupid, clearly when you were, 2, 3 year old, you touch your finger on the stove, you're like, never do that again. That was a bad idea. So it's clearly, right. So it's clearly little things that you've picked up along the way and what not to do. But it's true. Like, what is the genius only comes when you are actually doing something different that day, when you're creating something out of nothing. And why do you think so? And I love that you said it that way. AI, I don't think it has that capability. Will it ever have that capability? Is that something that is innate to human beings?
I mean, that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that what we believe is general intelligence is in fact just repetitive behavior. We say the same things. I mean, I listen to these podcasts, these like Bitcoin podcasts in particular. Everyone is saying the same thing in a different way. They're not intelligent in what they're doing, is that they're applying repetitive behavior in what they're saying. And by the way, most of these people are my friends and I love them very much. But what I'm more interested in is this stuff that really makes us human and different. And that's why I'm like kind of sitting on this edge of like what I do in my life, because I try to focus most of my day in acts of violence. That's just generally what I do, but not in the type that you think of violence. I think of violence in a different way. And context. This is not something I've
Why do you define violence that way? Why do you define violence that way? I don't want to let that die, because that's a very interesting definition. Is that I focus my day. That was a very strong phrase that you just said. I focus my day on acts of violence. And then you say it is not how most people define violence. It's not kinetic violence.
Not kinetic violence. It's not like I'm punching someone or I'm doing this. I want to break the system of repetitive action. I'm going to go do a workout I've never done before. I'm going to try a strategy that I've never done before. I'm going to try a new food that I've never ate before. I'm going to say something in a way that I've never said it before. And I'm going to think about that consciously, because if I throw a prompt in a chat GPT and it knows who I am, it's probably going to say the exact same thing that I'm normally saying. That's why, like, when we look at this thing, we think that it's intelligent because it looks like us, but it's arguably not that intelligent. It just does the same thing over again. And by the way, I got to give context. This is not something I made up. This is Eric's idea. I just listened to this. I listened to his talk so many times that it's like ingrained in my mind. And it's an idea that I'm like finding in myself that's important to me, because I don't want to fucking do the same thing that everyone else is doing. I'm not interested in that. I want to do something that's really fucking out there and different. And that's why we're working on bleeding edge shit. And it's so fucking hard. It's so hard to do what we're doing.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree. I love the way that you described it. Shout out to Eric. Holy crap. Clearly put a lot of thought into it.
I love that guy. I'm such a fan.
I want to tie it back into, you brought up Zion.
Yeah.
Does this logic, or this way of thinking, this approach, does it tie into this? Did it inspire you? Have you applied this to your company?
I mean,
first of all, what is Zion? What is Zion, for anyone who doesn't know?
Zion is a company that has a group of influential investors that want a free communication on the web. And the first implementation of how we bring that to life as a company is an app called Zion that allows an individual to create a cyber secure, decentralized identifier that's secured by the Bitcoin blockchain. I think one of the first consumer apps to do that in the world, a native Lightning wallet, and decentralized web nodes for data storage and messaging. So something that puts these three things together that weren't together ever before in the history of the world into an application framework that builds basically a communication and chat app for people to build communities. And the first example is a client we built that has creators and communities and profiles and a digital wallet. That's the first example. But that's not going to be the only one, right? Like Zion is a series of primitives. And what's important is who's involved. It's not just the fact that we are building this app. It's this collection of individuals that have this idea in mind to free the world from where we're thinking. And this series of people that are thinking about this brand consistently. There isn't an organization that has this series of individuals together for this cohesive mission of digital freedom. That's what it is, I think. And I change my thoughts on it every day. I don't know. I'm figuring it out.
So it was a beautiful explanation. You mentioned something which is decentralized identities, right?
Yeah. The core of what we do.
Well, yeah. Why is that important? What is that?
So one thing I found out about a year and a half ago is that most of how you identify yourself on the internet is controlled by a few companies. For example, like you use a Gmail account to log into almost everything. Gmail is owned by Google. And if Google, for whatever reason, turns off your Gmail account, you lose all of those login activities downstream. So the question was, is there a protocol or a system that allows you to own your digital identity secured by the most immutable blockchain ever created? Bingo. We got Bitcoin. We have DIDs. Microsoft built this thing called Ion, did Ion. Let's build that as our identity system. Let's build that the way to have identity. Like, makes so much sense where you have a 12-word seed phrase, it secures it as a hash on Bitcoin, and now you're the only one that gets to control your ID. That's why we did it that way. We didn't use another service because it's also how Block decided, said, hey, this Web5 thing, this is how we're going to implement it. Use this service. So we said, yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Jack Dorsey. Sounds like a plan.
Dude, okay. And then how does this tie in with content creation? How does this help a content creator? So is it clearly, so YouTube, so Google could abuse that, right? The fact that there's single point of failure, they have abused that. They've deplatformed people in the past, or websites that YouTube owns, better said. So how is this any different?
So the way that we've thought about our technical architecture is that's layer one, is you own the identity that you control. The second piece is, how is data, posts, and the connections between your fans created? So we're using the decentralized web node spec, DWN spec, for every creator. When they develop a profile in a community, it's all stored to their DWN. So now they have full sovereignty of control of their followers and their audiences. And what's really special about that is that it's held by the creator, not somebody else. And I know that there's all these other systems that are like, oh, we can decentralize messaging with putting relay and all this other stuff, which is a little bit different. But who owns the actual community and the connections? In this case, we want to enable the creator to own their audience and own where their content is distributed and allow them to change because it's their relationship. It's like building this digital house.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is Bitcoin. It's Lightning. It's making everything Lightning enabled. Do you have Zion on your phone?
But now I will. Now I don't, but now I will.
If you did, what would have been cool, and I've done this on a few podcasts, particularly remote, it might take you a while because the whole seed phrase thing it's not that fast, is I could do a Lightning invoice from my Zion app to your Zion app instantly while we're doing this. It's just really cool. Like, it's a really cool thing. Maybe have your producer set up the account and send you the 12-word seed phrase.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Opti, could you do that in the back? and
Do the
we'll do
He'll just log in and paste it, and he's off to the races.
boom. Okay. Hold on.
A
So
lot.
many things going on, Justin. Okay, so
Sorry, I move like this.
and this is good. It's good. Okay, so as a content creator, right? Like one of the things you live and die by your views, engagement, right? It's like it's what you want to do. Are people posting stuff to this platform? Is it like an infrastructure thing in the background?
Of course, people are posting stuff to their community. We have a Bitcoin only community that has about 864 people. We have a Swan community
Ooh.
that has about, I think Swan's community is the largest brand community inside the app with 238 members.
Ooh.
And then we have an Ordinals community. We have a Robert Breedlove community. We have a Bitcoin only community. We have a Justin Rezvani community.
And now you will have a Simply Bitcoin community.
Yes.
It's going to happen.
Let's go.
It's going to happen. Hopefully we can get it done during the live show.
It'll be fun to send you sats. It's one of the funnest things to send sats in a video live thing. To me, it's like the coolest thing to do that. And it's like, because we're moving money at the speed of light, quite
Yeah,
literally.
absolutely. Literally. Instantaneously. Like lightning. So Justin, so let's say one of the things, right, that you were talking about it, right? These single points of failure. You brought up the example of Google. It is an app, so that means you have to go to the App Store. Totally. Android is a little bit more flexible, right? Oh. But at least Apple, it's a closed garden. You're effed if Apple says you can't be on the App Store. What's going on? So
we're fighting with them right now. We have to take Zaps out of the app on Apple now.
What? What do you mean?
So the Android version will have Zaps, but not the Apple version. It's fucked up.
Wait, why? What is their logic?
Oh, you're not allowed to send people
money,
Bitcoin like that. You just can't do it. I'm surprised that they haven't come after Damas yet. I mean, I think it's next. They're going to be like, this is not allowed on our system.
I think the moment that Damas like gets popular enough where, because that's what happened with Twitter. That's what happened with YouTube. In the beginning, those platforms allowed anything. You could say whatever you wanted to, whatever. But as soon as they started becoming politically influential platforms, that's when the politicians knocked on the door and said, "Hey,
of course,
you gotta take this down. You gotta deplatform this. You gotta censor this, et cetera, et cetera."
And that's we're having. I think controls are important. So what I don't like, this is just my belief in building these systems. And Zion's not a social network. That's what's really important. Like people like Damas versus Zion, like we're not even doing the same thing. Like it's not even a close thing, because Damas is more like Twitter, where we're more like building a community app. Like you can't log into Zion and see content. It doesn't work that way. You have to go into a community, follow a community that you have an affinity towards, and then you'll be able to see content. And then there's chat rooms inside those communities. It's not like a Twitter open feed where you follow people and see stuff. Not the same thing. So and the reason I had that instinct was that a creator should be able to do whatever they want in their community. There shouldn't be any restriction. So we say that, yes, maybe there is going to be censorship, but not at the client level. It will be done at the creator level inside of their community. You can post stuff in your community and you're the one in charge. Like if someone comes in my house, I have the right to say, actually, I don't want you to say that in my house because it's my house, right? That's just the way the world works. But if you open up and say things to anybody, then that's where the rules come in.
Yeah, I got you.
If that makes sense. I don't know.
No, it does make sense. So, okay. So this is a community driven platform rather than just opening up. Why did you decide to make it community driven? Why do you think that's important?
Because I think that's where the future of this whole thing goes, right? I have a general thesis of what the future of communications and social look like. It's basically like a 6-tiered thing, is that first, it has to be built on a decentralized monetary layer. It has to allow for permissionless innovation. It's peer governed versus platform governed. It has to be censorship resistant. The creators have to own everything of their communities. And there's digital property rights through encryption. These were the 6 points of how I believe the future of communication platforms work. And if I did it in any other way, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. Like it has to be around this community concept.
Yeah.
And then building on that stack, the important thing is this tech stack, because If we didn't have decentralized identity, then you couldn't do decentralized messaging, and then you couldn't do decentralized data storage, right? Then you couldn't do payments. All these things all come back to these like layers that we're building on. And we're just in kind of like a slower race, you know? One thing that's like a really cool feature that's out on Android now, but not on Apple because they didn't approve us yet, is you could send sats in DMs like Venmo. So like if you have an Android app, I have the Android version and you create a profile, I can DM you sats instantly inside like Cash App and all those other features inside the app. And I think that's a very cool thing.
Yeah, 100%. And because I want to focus on the fact that you said app, you cannot send. I don't know why this is so that I'm so hung up on this, but you cannot send zaps through Apple. Why is that? Is that a regulatory issue? Is that because regulators are telling?
Doesn't follow their guidelines. They have a guideline about tips, and this is considered a tip, sending a zap to a profile to another user. They want you to use their native payment thing, which
Apple
is
Pay.
Apple Pay. But the problem is that you send one sat. You can't do that with the credit card. That was the whole point of why we were doing it the way we were doing it. But these are the rules. What can I do?
Yeah, I mean, what can we do? That's a great question.
Nothing. There's nothing you can do. Like, I'm not going to fight Apple. They own you. They own everything. So it's just, look, you can build an app that's not on the app stores. I get that. But you know, we made it for a long time, and now we have to change our stuff, and it is what it is. It's fine. Buy an Android. Android works fine.
Android works fine.
A lot more. Great.
Yeah, holy cow. So you think it's not because of, you know, because as a Bitcoiner, you're just like, oh, it's the politicians, it's the governments.
No.
It's not because of that. They're just protecting their own moat.
I don't think that this is that. I'm not a big like conspiracy guy. I think that I believe in Occam's razor a lot. Like logical thing is like the most obvious is the most, I don't know exactly what Occam's razor, but it's like the easiest thing, whatever. Because I understand like censorship very well. The reason is I spent a long time in the ad business, and I understood how had censorship occurred was a brand advertiser would effectively say, hey, we don't want this type of content next to our ad. So take this type of content ad. So we'll pay for ads. That's very simple. And everyone's like, oh, this is censorship. It's like, no, the brand just said this, they don't want stuff like that. They own the platform because they're the ones paying for everything. So you kick those people off. Like I said this on stage at the Bitcoin conference. I don't think that the new CEO of Twitter was put in because of this WEF stuff. She's put in because she ran the ad business at NBC. Twitter is an advertising business. It's very simply put. So he found the best woman CEO to run their ad business. And it makes tons of sense because they need ad revenue pretty badly. They lost 60% of their revenue overnight when Elon took over.
And that's because companies are just like, it's what you said, right? They don't want to be advertising.
Yeah, totally. They're like, we don't want to be associated with this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I get it.
Gotcha. Okay, so I want to go back to, you know, we were talking about, where we were talking about, you know, we hit on, you know, decentralized identifiers, why they're important, how they differentiate from how most people operate today. I think you gave a great example of everyone has a Gmail. Most companies run on Google and Gmail. It's a great example, right? This is different. So it's a decentralized identifier that lives on if Zion disappears tomorrow. Like how you know, what is the benefit of that decentralization?
It lives on Bitcoin forever. Your 12. What's cool, the way we implemented it is that we use BIP39 to encrypt your private key of your DID. And what's really cool is that you can actually go into the profile section of your app, go click security and settings, then click decentralized identity, and you can find your identity on the block explorer. This is not me telling you. You can actually look at the Bitcoin block explorer. Yeah, it's very cool. I saw someone made a comment inside the thread. I got all my sats out of Zion. Nothing's going to happen to the wallet, to be very clear. It's just that zaps won't happen inside of content. I want to be very clear that nothing will change with the Zion wallet. It's just that zap button that allows you to send sats instantly to a post. We have to take that button off. That's all that's happening. So if anyone's freaking out about sats, don't worry about it. Anyway.
Gotcha. Okay, so Opti says the account is set up. Opti, we're bringing you into the conversation. You're coming in. You're here. There we go.
Give me a 25,000 sat invoice and put it towards the screen.
Okay. All right.
Just click fund.
Hold on. And while we do this, I gotta add epic music. Hold on. Boom. There we go. You see? Boom.
Let's go. And it says Justin sent you. It's great.
Boom. It's instantaneous.
That was actually quick.
Okay, so how do we create a Simply Bitcoin community?
I just made it, I think. I don't know.
You just made it?
Did you?
I don't know.
You got to upgrade an account because we give you your own. You got to get your own DWN. You upgrade the account, and then you could create a community. It's pretty cool.
Hell yeah. Okay, Opti, we got to do this. We need a Simply Bitcoin community. We have a pretty dope Telegram, Justin, but now we need a Zion community.
We actually replicated all of Telegram's features inside the community. There's an open chat that's basically a clone of Telegram. We cloned all the features, except you can send sats.
Except you can send sats. I love that. I love that. On Android. Wow. Okay. So we talk about decentralized identifiers. Now I want to talk. Okay, Opti, thank you, bro. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Opti's the best. I would not be able to do what I do without Opti. Okay, so let's talk about Web 5, right? So I feel like that kind of falls down the Web 5 type of category.
This is all Web 5 stuff. This is TBD's genius, not ours.
And that's why that's why Jack Dorsey is a major supporter of your company, right?
There was a tweet he made back in like October that was so killer, dude. It was such a blessing. I really, really appreciate that, man. And I really appreciate Block and TBD in general. They are so supportive of what we're doing, and it just feels super nice. How that happened was quite funny. I was on a flight to New York. I landed and I had 100 texts in my phone. I was like, oh my God, what happened? Who died? And this tweet went out and I was like, oh my God, like a lot of fucking people saw it. The reason this tweet is really interesting is that, so this was sent the day Elon bought Twitter and took over. That kitchen sink video, that was same day, Jack's trending. And if you click the blog post, it's basically me describing what a future social network would look like built on a payment rail and DIDs. And so that was pretty fucking cool, man. Like for me, that was like a big win as an entrepreneur. I was like, cool, we have a little bit of signal here, and just very thankful. I'm very, very thankful. Obviously, a lot has like happened since then because Noster has come about, and obviously Jack is a massive support of that. But TBD launched the SDK at the Bitcoin conference, and it's very exciting that now we can build full-fledged decentralized web apps on that stack and be interoperable. I'm really excited about it. I'm really, really stoked.
So, and by the way, congratulations on that. That's a great market signal telling you that you're heading in the right direction for sure.
I don't know, maybe,
right? So, okay. Web 5, all this stuff. So one of the things, Justin, I have a trouble, wrapping my head around is the network effect, right? So Twitter has a network effect, YouTube has a network effect, right? Obviously, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot a little bit with the censorship and all that stuff. How do you propose that these decentralized platforms are going to be able to overcome that eventually?
So hard. I don't have a clear answer other than we have very influential people on our cap table. I was very specific. Like my second investor was Tony Robbins. I brought in Aubrey Marcus, Mark Moss, Robert Breedlove, Griffin Johnson, Pomp, Aaron Rodgers from the quarterback of the Jets. All these people are in our corner. And so my hope is that once we're fully ready, we all start talking about it together and we could build a network effect with these micro communities. That's my hope. But I'm not necessarily trying to build Twitter. I'm not trying to compete at this like big town square level. I want to build a community platform for the people that we're closest with and we care about. I don't have to be as big as Twitter to be successful. So I don't proxy myself against these other things, but breaking a network effect is very hard, very entrenched.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned like these and by the way, very good friends of mine, a lot of people that you mentioned. And, but also, predominant investors, clearly, what's your background? Where did you come before this?
Me as like, what did I do before this?
Yeah, of course you.
You're talking to me?
I'm talking to Opti, actually.
I mean, look, circa 2012, Instagram gets bought by Facebook for $1 billion. I look at that app and I'm like, this is the future of advertising, but not through ads, through people. So I built the first app on the App Store that connected an influencer to a brand. So influencer marketing, very early 2012, 2013. Basically, we were the only way to do ads on Instagram till mid 2015. So brands would pay us to say, hey, I want to grow this. I have an Instagram and I want to grow followers on Instagram. How do you do it? You called the Amplify. You called Justin Rezvani. And I sold that business in 2016
Congrats, man.
when I was 27 years old. And I'm going to be 35 in 2 weeks. It was a long time ago.
Well, I just turned 31 recently. So
a lot has happened since then. So.
we're almost at the same age. But hey, man, congrats on the exit. That's absolutely incredible.
That's kind of why. I mean, I'm an operator. I've done well, and I think I'm very financially focused. That's why Zion isn't like we've spent money, but we've also made over $580,000 in the last 2 years in revenue, right? Like it's not that we're this, startup that's just like begging for donors and investors. And we were profitable. We did 70,000 in profit last month. Great business. I love that about us. And so that's kind of my background of why I do what we do.
So let's talk about that for a little bit, right? So you had a successful exit. Clearly, is a very successful company. You had a monopoly for a very long time. Clearly you're in Bitcoin, right? So I'm assuming some of that money you put into
time, not even close. I bought some Bitcoin in like 2016, 2017, but I didn't actually get into Bitcoin until I read the Lightning white paper in October of 2020 on a flight to Istanbul, Turkey. So I didn't actually understand. I just thought it was a thing. I didn't get it until 2020. So I'm by no means like a Bitcoin like OG. I barely know. I barely know what I'm talking about. I barely understand what Bitcoin actually is. I tried to, dance in these worlds, but there's people that are a lot smarter than me that talk about repetitively, of course.
So I love that.
A joke for a while.
I will never forget when I am going to wake up in the morning. I'm like, Nico, you brush your teeth. That was repetition. Now you need an act of violence. Okay. Act of violence right now.
It's not intelligent.
Right now. Act of violence. Okay. So anyone for tuning in, it's not kinetic violence, by the way. You got to back up the show and to figure out what Justin's talking about. Anyways, so what was it about? And clearly it was a very memorable moment because you knew exactly where you were. What was it about reading about Lightning on your flight to Turkey that was so memorable, and why did that make it click? Like for me personally, it was when I read about Bitcoin before Lightning was even a thing, because I went all in 2016, just never turned around since then. And for me, it was always Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin was great. I look at Lightning, I'm like, great, it's a second layer, but I'm a base layer guy. I tweeted this out the other day. I don't mind paying $100 on the base layer as long as I know that this is decentralized and this, will lead to the separation of money, and say, I don't care if we pay $1,000 on the base layer. So what was it about Lightning that made you so, I don't know how to describe it.
It's a very clear
inspired you.
Business decision. So at the Amplify, we would do hundreds of thousands of transactions using PayPal a week by uploading CVS files to PayPal, going through them to pay our creators. And it was a pain in my ass for 5 years. And I looked at the way that the Alice and Bob thing was, the diagram in this Lightning white paper. I was like, it's the fucking thing I've been looking for 10 years. This is the thing, to send money between two people instantly without going through PayPal. Like that was the remarkable thing, and no fees, and do it fast. I was like, someone's got to build something on top of this. Like, and then what I did was I wanted to invest in a company doing this. In 2020, I was like, I'm not going to go start another business necessarily. let me go find a company that has a native Lightning wallet that does communication and all that stuff. And at the time, there really wasn't anything out there. There was Sphinx Chat, which we have a history of, and I can get into details of what happened there. But other than that, there wasn't anything that had this and had these features. And it was so obvious. I was like, all right, I got to get out of retirement. I got to build this thing. And here we are 2.5 years later, like 3 years in October. Crazy.
I mean, but that's a crazy, and that to me is the crazy part, right? The fact that you saw an opportunity and you felt so inclined, right? You had a successful exit, very young age, 27, but you felt like you had to do something more. And that to me is very interesting.
Purpose.
Yeah. I say this all. Human beings cannot live without purpose. It's very true.
It was my great act of violence in 2020 was to start this business.
Okay. So what are some things that, what are some things that you learned about Bitcoin along the way after starting this?
That I know nothing. I think when I've realized that I know nothing. Generally, I think that it was the right choice for money to move between two people. At the time, there were people that were convincing me to start my own token, build it on another blockchain. But I had this confidence that this was the right thing to do. I was really like true to myself. I was like, this is the right way to do this. And I think that was the right choice. I still stand by my decision that Bitcoin was the right choice to build Zion on Bitcoin. And now we really are ingraining ourselves as a Bitcoin company, because what's really strange to me, and I'm not a Nostr hater by any chance, but for the most part, Nostr has nothing to do with Bitcoin, right? Like nothing about it is on Bitcoin other than the Zap thing. But Zion is everything about it is on Bitcoin. Like your login sits on Bitcoin's blockchain as a private key hashed as a transaction. We're a native Lightning wallet that I can just do what I just did between two people. Like everything about what we do is built on Bitcoin. And so, I mean, I got a fucking thing behind me. So I think that's the thing that I'm seeing myself being more ingrained with the community and being more ingrained with what we're trying to do. Because ultimately, I believe that Bitcoin is this cybersecurity layer of the internet. So why are we not using Ion, for example, as this holistic identity layer that's built on Bitcoin? Because in my opinion, Bitcoin is the ultimate cybersecurity system on the web. Why not use these existing systems? It's weird that this small startup called Zion has put more identities on the Bitcoin blockchain than any company in history. It's very strange to me that we're the first to do this at scale. And I've been told that by all the people that built this thing at Microsoft. They're like, nobody's encrypted 4,500 DIDs in under 30 days. It's never happened. We did it.
That's so freaking interesting. Okay. So hold on a second. This is a great I'm really enjoying this, Justin. And I do this every day. So, okay. So
people are finding value.
It's the acts of violence, bro, that have been it's like waka taka waka taka waka. It just keeps happening.
Podcasts like that from now on.
It just keeps happening, bro. It just keeps happening. Okay. So, all right. So a lot to unpack. So, great successful exit, 2015, cashed out, 2016, better said. Then 2020 comes along, you feel inspired. You read this book on the way to Turkey. You just have to create Zion. You're doing all this shit that no one else thought before you. So what is the next 5-10 years looks like in your eyes, Justin? What are you looking at? What gets you excited in the morning?
I think that what Zion will transition to over the next few years is not just this community app, but will be one of the world's first digital democracy apps and enable digital democracy for citizens all around the world. For the first time that we can enable and empower the people to be governments by themselves and self-govern, because we give them the most decentralized, hardest money ever created in their pocket, in the palm of their hands. We give them identities to be themselves and be sovereign individuals. We allow them to communicate with each other with no centralized servers. And then ultimately we will add components like voting, microloans, all these other things to build this worldwide network. And that's why it's called Zion, right? I mean, it's the last city in the matrix without machines, that we're not controlled by whatever's plugged in the back of our heads. My final act of violence, perhaps.
Wow. Very, 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 very well said. Okay. So you were talking about democracy.
Yeah.
Democracy doesn't have a good rap in the Bitcoin space. And shout out to Svetsky. He's done some writing on that.
I don't.
I actually had a conversation with Gladstein, and the conclusion that I got to at the end of the conversation is that perhaps democracy is okay. Perhaps it's just that fiat, the ability for this bureaucratic elite or this privileged class to benefit from creating money for free that everyone else has to work for, has fundamentally corrupted democracy. I think that if you remove that element, you separate money from state, perhaps democracy is viable. What would you say to that?
I would agree. I think that Bitcoin is hope. Bitcoin is our hope to break through that system. And it has to be the core of how it all comes together. It's no coincidence that we've done what we've done on the technologies that we've built on. And I think that it will play it out in the world that this was the right technical decision, the right architecture to build an app like this that the world needs and the world deserves. So yes, I agree with that point mostly. But I wouldn't say that I'm that well versed in some of these things because I don't know what's happening all around the world. Like I'm a privileged Persian Assyrian man that lives in the United States of America. So I can't speak to what's exactly happening in other countries. But what I do hope is that this technology can help people. Like that's my biggest thing. Like I don't give a fuck about money anymore. I don't need more of it. I'm good. I want to really help people around the world. I like this is why like if you look at my bios, it's truly like I'm of service to be in service and of service. Like I really believe that in my life because I think like there's people in the world that need this a lot more than I do necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So how does Zion compare? And I think you mentioned this like earlier on, but I kind of want to go back to it, right? So how does it compare to the decentralized social protocols? Like, for example, you have Jack Dorsey's project, which is Blue Sky, or like Nostr. You were talking a little bit about the community aspect a little bit, but maybe I want to go down what's behind the hood. Like, what is the technical difference between something like Nostr,
Totally.
something like Zion, and something like Blue Sky?
I think first of all, these are all complementary things. There's no competing, like the idea of Zion competing with Nostr and Zion competing with Blue Sky is not actually a thing because those are all protocols. And we will eventually use Nostr in Zion in some way if it becomes the thing. And we will eventually maybe use Blue Sky if it becomes the thing. So it's not like we are competing against these other applications, but the architectures are a little bit different. I don't know anything about Blue Sky, and I know very little about Nostr. What I know about Nostr is that you have a private public key pair. You post something and it goes out to a bunch of places. It's fully public and nothing can be deleted. And everyone knows what you're doing at all times. Whereas the way we work, the thing that we're doing is that you have a DID that also has a public and private key pair that's secured by the Bitcoin blockchain. That's very different. So our identities live on Bitcoin and that's where it's held. And it's a non-custodial identity service. The second thing is that we have a native Lightning wallet on every single client. None of those apps have that. The third thing is that the way that the data is stored is on a decentralized web node, which allows the sovereignty of the content of the creator and their communities to be owned by themselves, not replicated across thousands of relays around the world. Hope that one of them, like the thing I don't get about Nostr is like you can't really delete anything. It's there forever. You have to like ask everyone, like request delete, I think was the thing I heard. Like you have to ask them to delete stuff. And they don't have to. You're like, you already posted, it's done. That's weird to me. Like if you're a creator, you want to delete something on your own. Like I want to change my door handle. I should be able to change my door handle in my house. I think that should be, it's more composable. So that's what's different. I think that eventually, I've said this before on many podcasts. I had an article about this. We will use Nostr and Zion in some way. But what's really important is how I'm deciding this. One of my investors gave me some really important advice. And it's that I'm in no rush to decide. You just decide when you're going to decide. It's Tony Robbins' advice. You decide when I'm going to decide. And what I've decided is that in Q4, I'm going to decide what's going to happen with Zion and Nostr and how we're going to bring that. But Until then, I'm going to just wait. I'm just going to chill because I can. I have the privilege.
Hell yeah. I
Doing that.
love the Tony Robbins advice. That's what I've been.
Oh, he's so great.
That's what I was marinating on.
He did the endorsement on the cover of my book. That was so gangster of him to do.
Wait,
Like,
what is your book?
hold on. I had a copy sitting right here on my desk.
Okay.
My book is called Unapologetic Freedom. This is my little shill. At the top, Tony's quote was, if you ever wanted to make your digital interactions as authentic and free as in-person conversation, look no further. This book provides a path to a richer and more civil world. It's called Unapologetic Freedom. It was a bestseller on Amazon for a bit, but it's a Bitcoin book. It's how Bitcoin defeats censorship, ensures sovereignty, and reclaims our liberty forever.
Okay. When did you write this book?
April of 2020, last year.
Okay. What inspired you to write this book?
I had to write a book. It's a thing. I had all these ideas and I wanted to write them down in a thing. There's something about a book. It's like something weird that a book does. Like you're an author. Like an author is a weird thing to be. So I wrote it in 10 weeks and I put it out on the internet.
You know,
authors.
You know what? There is something about a book. There is something about the physical properties of.
You're like, would you give it to someone? They're like, what? You wrote a book? You're an author?
I have a story though. I have a story as to why, and I agree with you.
Story from a sushi bar yesterday.
Okay, I agree with you though. So I did Thank God for Bitcoin, and I interviewed Alex Gladstein. I did it off my phone. Okay.
Yep.
I hated it. I went on to buy a journal book, right? It's just not filled, right? And I put the notes for my next couple panels, and I put it on a journal instead for the Bitcoin conference. And that looked great. And it made me feel good. There's something about the physical touch, to go back to your book comment, that like this can't replicate.
Yeah.
This digital stuff cannot replicate.
This is the thing.
This physical stuff.
Physical thing. And you put like, the idea is like you put your mind into a series of words that will effectively live on forever.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very interesting thing. Like this will live on as my first thing in the world forever. And to me, it mattered a lot to write it about Bitcoin, to have the symbolism to be about Bitcoin. It was really important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So you were talking about content creators earlier. And one of the things about content creation, right, is the revenue model sucks, right? You know, if you are going to a pure, you know, Google AdSense play, you know, that sucks. You know, what some content creators do is they rely on, you know, on sponsors. We're very privileged at Simply Bitcoin to have a bunch of Bitcoin companies supporting us, specifically on the live show. And then of course there's subscription model, which is like the holy grail I would consider. So what's your take on that? I'm sure that that's something that you've thought about. You probably have, you know, thought of some ideas to try to fix that.
Yeah, I think that the subscription model makes sense if you have like real fans. And what's interesting is if you can build a model like OnlyFans on top of Bitcoin, it actually saves a lot of money for the creator, right? So right now, like these platforms take like 20 to 30% and sometimes take 30 days to actually give you the money. Where if you do it on Bitcoin and Lightning, instant settlement, instant transfer, and you could stream sats. And I think that's a very interesting model for you to build on top of a project. And I think that's just one example of how Bitcoin is a little bit more effective, but it requires the other side of the coin. What we don't realize is that a lot of people don't use this stuff yet. And we're so early. Like I'm talking on a podcast that's called Simply Bitcoin. So obviously people listening to this are somehow understand that Bitcoin is a thing, but there's a lot more people out there in the world. And that's really what my focus is. I think you'll notice like I talk differently, I act differently, I look differently, I dress differently because I'm talking to a different person. I'm trying to like talk to the masses a little bit more and expand outside of Bitcoin because I think we're a bit tribal, we're a bit religious. We're also angry a lot. I don't like that. And I'm not like so I'm not so down with the screaming on Twitter. I'm not aligned with it. I am just not. It's just not me as a person. I don't
Yeah, I mean, it's the doom porn, right? The doom porn. A lot of people like to consume that type of content, but you mentioned something. You buried the lead there, and I want to go back to it because I think it's a fascinating conversation, which is this idea that, and you said it in the beginning. You said that a lot of your favorite content creators, unfortunately, they sound very repetitive, and it's true, right? Bitcoin content creators make content for Bitcoiners, right? So it's very difficult to break out of the Bitcoin echo chamber. And if we do want this thing to go mainstream and the ideas and the ethos of Bitcoin to go mainstream, it's really important that that echo chamber gets broken, right? Yeah.
like
So
it just it feels like everyone's just talking to each other all the time. It's the same people on stage saying the same things in like a new different way. I don't know. I'm a little like maybe fatigued by it. Like
yeah, I
I
mean,
think like what I think was so remarkable, and I will say this is the Eric Weinstein's interview with Robert Breedlove was the best talk at the Bitcoin conference, next to RFK being like the pro and Tulsi Gabbard. Those were the top three because they come completely out of this community. They're not anyone you would think that's a Bitcoiner. And we need to have conversations with more people like that. That's who we need to talk to and engage with and not call them, not push them out of our community. And that's the problem. I mean, Eric said this a lot was like the maxis have attacked him multiple times. Why? Why are you attacking a genius mathematician about his ideas and the way that he thinks about stuff when he gave, I think, the most brilliant talk at our head conference? Support, be nice, listen to ideas. Don't be intelligent.
yeah. Well, I mean, so I think
I know what I meant by that. That listen.
I know what you meant by that. But yeah, don't be a smartass, right? Is that be a fair
I just don't fight with people.
yeah.
Just be like, okay, that's an interesting idea, right?
Yeah.
Like, like this ordinals debate. I don't even know what we're debating here.
I don't even know what ordinal is, bro.
I don't get it. I don't like. What are you debating? You're saying, are you mad? Like, people do what they want to do. Cool. If it makes it better, it's not.
Yeah. I think, you know what it is, Justin, is that I think Bitcoiners, Opti and I have actually talked about this. I think that for the very early days of Bitcoin, right? You could have made the argument that tribalism was useful because it protected a lot of newcomers coming in and them being misguided into shitcoinery, right? I think in this next step of Bitcoin's life where we are breaking out of the Bitcoin echo chamber, it's slowly seeping into the mainstream. You have podcasters like Tim Pool, completely mainstream, mentioning, "Hey, the banking system's going to zero. I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to buy Bitcoin." Like, I heard that, and that was a very influential moment. You have Alex Jones admitting, like, "Hey, maybe I should have listened to Max Kaiser 10 years ago." Right. So, and again, Alex Jones is a very polarizing figure. Whatever you feel about them, the fact is that guy is followed by a lot of people that are not Bitcoiners. So is Tim Pool. So is Eric. Right. And those are really the people that are really going to move the envelope. And that's why I was so happy too when Jordan Peterson spoke at Bitcoin 2022. And I think Breedlove was a big reason for that.
Totally.
So yeah, man.
Good. Breedlove's so good at having these really intelligent conversations with the smartest people around the world. He's a very special human. I appreciate him so much. He's a great reflection for me. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, Rob is great. Had him on the show a couple weeks ago. You know, one of my first questions was to him. So Rob, what is money? He's like, I didn't think that was gonna be your first question, but yeah, Rob's a good guy. But anyways, so kind of want to, we have a couple minutes left. Want to circle back and really focus on this idea of, like, clearly it's, subscription models like the Holy Grail. That's what people should do. I think Bitcoin's going to enable this. But for example, from like a company's perspective, like clearly Google takes a cut or YouTube takes a cut because they are a business themselves. So my question to you is, how do you make money as a company, as Zion?
So as you'll see, when you want to create your community, you
Mhm.
pay us $12 a month because that allows us to host a DWN for you. That allows your profile to be verified, quote unquote, like Instagram does. That's how we make money. Is that people
Subscriptions.
make subscriptions, that people build communities on the app, and that's how we monetize.
Gotcha.
And we're lucky that we have thousands of communities on the app, and thousands of people pay us every month to build those communities. And it helps the development further, and make progress. That's where we're at.
That's awesome. And that allows you, because you're asking, it's like, look, $12, and then that allows you not to take a cut from creators
Yes.
being paid directly from the audience.
Because we don't have any control of how the money flows between two wallets.
Gotcha. And also, so the 12-word seed phrase, right? It's created. Do you have access to that word?
No. That's the thing. Like, that's why when you create an account, there's like, you have to check like 5 different things. And like, if you lose this, your identity's gone, because what's happening on the device, this is the technical stuff if people care. What happens is we use BIP39. BIP39 is a Bitcoin improvement protocol of how 12-word seed phrases are created for Bitcoin. We took that and says, okay, this is how we're going to create a key for you using a DID. So everything happens locally on the phone and using the secure storage of the device. You create a DID, then it creates this 12-word seed phrase to encrypt the private key. You write that down, you retype that in. So why this identity service is non-custodial. Then we pass back a JWT token to the secure storage of the device saying, this checks out. They repeated the seed phrase twice. We use did ion. It ships the hash of your DID to Bitcoin Core. And that's how you log in every time to the app, is this 12-word seed phrase. But no, we do not have any access to the thing. That's why people are like, oh, I lost my seed phrase. Start a new account. There's nothing I can do. Sorry.
Gotcha. Interesting. Well, it's really cool.
Yeah.
There will be a Simply Bitcoin community on the Zion app
Yes.
very, very quickly.
Yes.
We will pay that $12 a month happily to support what you're doing.
Oh man, I appreciate that.
Love the innovation. It's good. I like it. And yeah, man, Justin, thank you so much for joining us today on Simply Bitcoin IRL. Really, really appreciate it. Did not expect this conversation to be so violent.
I love that.
But yeah, lots of I liked it. I liked it a lot.
I think we got to clip out that front stuff. I think we have to really clip out that front part of our conversation.
Yeah, we jumped straight into it. I love that.
We have to see. We have an hour. Let's get into it. What are we going to wait for?
Yeah,
it set the tone. It set the tone quite well.
It did set the tone. Anyways, Justin, thank you so much for joining us, guys. That was another episode of Simply Bitcoin IRL. If you enjoyed it, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. We'll be back tomorrow for the live show, 12:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But until then, I'll see you guys later. Peace out.